It's a question no doubt we've all asked at some point. Are we there yet? Not just about the Omicron wave that kicked off on the other side of Christmas, but of the pandemic as we know it. This week, NPHET is recommending an easing of restrictions right across the board. Little more than 2 weeks after Ireland saw some of the highest infection rates anywhere in the world. That quick change is enough to tell you there's something different about Omicron. But what? Here's Dr. Brian Kent of St James's Hospital in Dublin.
The severity of illness is not like what we saw last year. So far fewer people are coming in with a florid COVID pneumonia, and far fewer people are developing respiratory failure, whereby they can't really breathe satisfactorily. I think we're beginning to see a quicker turnaround time for a reasonably significant number of people. And certainly our assumption when we meet someone now who has COVID is that they will not be hanging around or stuck in the hospital for as long as they were previously.
Hospitals are now seeing fewer people admitted due to COVID in comparison to previous waves, those people generally not needing to stay as long, nor are they requiring as much critical care or advanced supports. For the Delta wave of COVID, the rate of hospitalisations per 1,000 cases was around 25 people. Now it's down to less than half that, at between 5 and 10. Admissions to ICU are less clear. NPHET's head of modelling reckons it could be less than half of the 3 estimated in the Delta wave. While about 300 of the near 1,000 people in hospital as of Tuesday are in hospital not because of COVID, but with COVID. That feeling of creeping optimism extends as far as NPHET. Here's Dr. Tony Houlihan last week on The Outlook.
So we've seen a huge volume of infection, much greater in terms of numbers of cases than we saw this time last year with the Alpha infection that we saw just after Christmas. And we haven't seen a resultant very significant increase, although there has been one, in numbers of people being admitted to hospital or ICU. And that tells us a couple of things. It tells us that this virus, first of all, and this is borne out by the international experience, appears to be milder in terms of its overall impact, number one.
With it increasingly clear that cases have peaked, the government is now looking at its restrictions. The Taoiseach says he wants them all gone on a legal basis by the end of March. The 8 p.m. curfew at pubs and restaurants could be gone. Crowds at indoor gatherings and outdoors at sporting events like next month's Six Nations Rugby are all back on the agenda. The Health Minister says they could be changed as early as next week.
People want to move as quickly as we can. Anything we can do to ease the burden on them quickly, obviously, will be looked at very seriously by government.
But what comes after Omicron? Well, Google searches of the word endemic have spiked. Some leaders in Spain, the UK and France say it's time to treat the virus more like the flu and other seasonal viruses. While the government here is interested in this potential outcome, some of the world's scientists are divided. Speaking to the BBC, Dr. Elisabetta Grappelli of St George's University in London says things are looking up. Endemicity was written into this virus, she says. I am very optimistic. We'll soon be in a situation where the virus is circulating. We will take care of people at risk. But for anybody else, we accept they will catch it, and your average person will be fine. On the other hand, the World Health Organization is calling for people to show some patience. It says we're still very much in the midst of a pandemic. A Harvard epidemiologist was even more blunt, tweeting, "For the avoidance of doubt, Omicron is not endemic right now in much the same way that the moon is not a hamster." One thing to watch out for is reinfection. How long will the immunity built up by hundreds of thousands of infections here and a booster programme last? Here's Professor Christine Loescher of DCU.
So the numbers we'll be specifically focused on are reinfection rates of Omicron infection after having Omicron. So we'll know those. I suppose we'll start to see those coming from the UK and South Africa in the next couple of weeks. So once they don't upset the apple cart too much in terms of that we're seeing high rates of reinfection, then I think we're in a very good position. But that's going to be the key number to look at.
So that is going to be a very, very key question. Scientists say we have to wait and see. COVID becoming an endemic would not mean, however, that it's game over. And many endemic viruses like HIV, malaria and TB do pose risks to life and to health. But it could mean that we're into a whole new phase. The world won't be free of COVID for some time to come. It's almost 2 years now since COVID was declared a pandemic, a new normal, the buzz phrase used to describe the adjustments to our society and to all of our lives. While the world will still be in a pandemic, in Ireland, everyday life may soon be returning to something a lot more normal in the weeks and the months to come.